may be tuned into that. If you are, this presentation will be borrowing on some of the same resources that he's using there. And we have until 2:30, so we're trying to cover as much as possible, leaving time for questions, which normally on this subject there's often plenty of questions. Always amazes me how many questions can arise on the details of deity worship. You think you've addressed every question, then a different question comes up. Yeah. So we're going to say I'm not gonna try and rush and try and squeeze everything in, because I've tried to, in one sense, this seminar, normally the seminar which I'm showing is over a weekend, and it's like 4-hour sessions, one like 8 hours, but I managed to work on the presentation so it's quite succinct and it's quite focused and succinct, and hopefully it's gonna encourage you and help you in your worship at home. Now, first of all, home worship itself, Prabhupada said this one quote here, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Whoever cares for Krishna consciousness movement can install deities at home, and under superior guidance worship the deity regularly, chanting the Maha Mantra and discussing the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We are actually teaching in our classes how to go about this. One who feels that he is not yet ready to live in a temple or undergo strict regulative principles in a temple, especially householders who live with a wife and children, can start a center at home by installing the deity, worshipping the Lord morning and evening, chanting Hare Krishna, and discussing the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone can do this at home without difficulty, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested all the devotees present there to do so. So, in that sense, home worship is vital for our development of Krishna consciousness. We can't make it to the temple every day, because otherwise busy, and at the moment the temple's closed. But we're going to go over a few advantages. Normally this is like a brainstorming. We ask devotees what advantages are there in worshipping the deity at home. Now here's a few things that have come up, that have been brought up in the past. So it's very good for purification, Jeto Darpanam Marjanam, we're practicing Krishna consciousness, and the idea is that we purify ourselves from material attachment. So specifically, regularly worshipping the deity, and here specifically worshipping the deity at home, very much helps for us to be purified. So you see in the bullet point there, helps to keep oneself clean in habits and mind. Later we'll be looking at a few items of cleanliness as a very important point Prabhupada mentioned in regards to deity worship. Temple, definitely punctuality and cleanliness. Prabhupada said in one place that the Grihastha devotees should be examples of cleanliness. So especially if we have the Lord at home, it's incumbent upon us to keep the home like a temple. Prabhupada in the quote there, he mentioned we could start a center by having deities at home, so that so every family is a unit of itself, so every family is a center. Yeah. So Prabhupada, another quote here, this is from the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, because one may say, or you may have heard, you may even contemplate ourselves, all we need to do is to chant Hare Krishna. What is the need for deity worship? Yeah. Sometimes that is brought up in the temples. It's maybe so hard to maintain. So what is the actual need for it? So Prabhupada mentions in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam I just read here a direct quote, 6th canto, if you're taking notes, 6th canto, 3rd chapter, text 25. Especially in the age of Kali, Sankirtan alone is sufficient. If the members of our temples in different parts of the world simply continue Sankirtan before the deity, especially before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they will remain perfect. There is no need of any other performances. Then he goes on to say, nevertheless, to keep oneself clean in habits and mind, deity worship and other regulative principles are required. Srila Jiva Goswami says that although Sankirtan is sufficient for the perfection of life, the archana or worship of the deity in a temple must continue in order that the devotees may stay clean and pure. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur therefore recommends that one follow both processes simultaneously. We strictly follow the principles of performing deity worship and Sankirtan along parallel lines. So this is also known as Pancharatrika Vidhi and the Bhagavat Vidhi. They're like two rails of a track. Pancharatrika Vidhi is all the details in deity worship, and Bhagavat Vidhi is hearing and chanting of the holy name. So it does play a very important role to keep ourselves in a sanguine state, to keep ourselves in the right frame of mind and the right situation where we can chant the holy name of the Lord. So home worship, it's very, if we have the Lord at home, we should be mindful, and it's recommended. There's many different standards of worship at home, but a really nice standard, for example, we'll mention this a bit later, a nice standard is to be showered and clean before you actually worship, or you worship or dress your deities. That's a nice standard that some devotees have. Some devotees, they wear a dhoti or sari, clean before they do the worship at home. Keep in mind, there's no, exactly with home worship, there's no hard and fast rules as such. And the different standards is a bit like a piece of string. It very much depends on the time you have and your personal situation. But we should be mindful, regardless of what our situation is, that to have the Lord at home, then it's very well, it helps us to keep clean in habits, and also in habits and clean mind and clean habits. Also helps to develop regulation. Now, in a temple, it's very strict. Prabhupada, as we mentioned, in 2 items in deity worship is punctuality and cleanliness. So that may not always be possible at home, but as much as possible, you want to be as regulated as possible, because that will help. That will help us to be healthy. That will help us to practice Krishna consciousness. Regulation is a natural state of the universe. The sun rises at specific set times, and the moon as well. All the planets are moving according to time. So that's the normal function. In one place in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that human life is shortened by irregular habits. So although it's not expected that your deity worship home is going to be as exacting and punctual, it will help. Like if you have a regulation, okay, you do your evening arti for your deities, if you're doing, say 7 o'clock, it's good to try and keep that. It helps so that the whole family becomes used to that time. You know, the children get ready, they know you're going to start worshiping the deities. So it does help to have regulation, but it's not an offense if the regulation is not kept in the case of a need. In other words, if you're going to dress the deities and all of a sudden you hear your baby crying, then what should you do? You should go to tend to your baby. You should go and see you shouldn't just obviously your baby crying, and then there's no offense. But it could become, if we really have no regulation at all, then what will happen is eventually you won't be able, eventually you'll stop worshipping the deities because there'll be other things which you seem as more important. You know, if one day you do the art, you know, according to your mood, whether you're going to offer arti or not. And if you consider, oh, I'm too tired, I can't do the arti, you know, let's leave it today, then that's not developing such a good approach or mood towards the Lord, to a worshiping the Lord. And also, all Vaishnavas generally have deities at homes. Traditionally, they would have the Shalagram Shila, and specifically, one of the functions is that we eat prasadam. So before we eat anything, we offer it to our Lord at home. That may be pictures. That's fine. That's considered non-different in one sense. We bring that up later. Pictures, there's no commitment which is needed as such. So you may be, that's why it's best if you're a student or you're traveling or you're moving regularly from one place to another, then it's generally recommended you have pictures. But if you're settled and you're secure, you have your house, then you might consider deities, having deities. Then you offer all your food, should be offered to deities. Hopefully, I'm sure you're all doing that. And also, a matter of purification, it turns the house into a sanctified, it helps us to live in a sanctified atmosphere. As I mentioned, the temple always has this atmosphere where the holy name is chanted. So when we invite the Lord into the home, it helps to create a favorable Krishna conscious atmosphere. And just coming to mind, I was going to mention just before we started, that some of you may be doing worship at home for many years. Some of you are maybe thinking about doing worship at home, or some of you may be preaching to someone who may be ready to do some worship at home. So hopefully this little presentation will be of help for all these devotees. Yeah, it also helps the children to become very much helpful. Helps the children to develop their Krishna, develop their Krishna consciousness. Some of them, I'm sure you're aware, seeing the benefits of that. The children can help with making ghee wicks, or they can help cleaning paraphernalia. Simply by seeing, if you have guests that come as well to your house, family members, or even people coming to fix the boiler. It's a very nice preaching point when they come in. I had someone, I stay in an ashram. We have different ashrams around the temple, outside of the temple, and I have Lord Nrsingadev, and someone came to clean the windows. And we had a nice discussion about Lord Nrsingadev through the window. He was very curious about who this was. So in that sense, it's very advantageous, can help preaching. Also, it's very good for meditation and focus. I was regularly seeing the Lord. It has an impression upon the mind. I'm sure you can all relate to that. When we wake up in the morning, we pay obeisances and we do our shower, etc. Depends where your deities are. Let's say, for example, they're downstairs in the main room. And then you come downstairs and you enter the room, and then you'll see the Lord. Then you pay your obeisances to the Lord. Also, it's something you can, like in the temple, people regularly come and sit before the altar, offering their heart, offering their problems, calling out to the Lord. Some people come in the temple here, I've seen it, they come and they just, there's one man, he's not coming presently, because we've been locked out, so to speak. He comes practically every morning and he just stares intently at the lordships for about 2 hours. And he goes to work. So it's really good if you don't, are you thinking of having deities at home or an altar at home or doing some worship at home? This is very good. Seeing the Lord, it makes an impression. And also you will obviously develop a relationship with your particular deity. I mean, I know devotees in our community who've been worshipping a deity for like at home for nearly 40 years. And they have a very sublime relationship with the deity, with the Lord. We mentioned this helps us to be aware of the Lord's presence in our lives at home. It's a good focus for all of our activities. Yeah. All activities are for His pleasure. like within the temple, all the activities that we do. Yeah, you may even have, I'm sure you have been having little, you can have little festivals at home with just a husband or wife or children. You focus, like, it's a good opportunity. Normally in Western culture, I'm sure you all know that, at least when I was living at home, brought up, the focus of all activities is what's called the one-eyed guru, which is the television. So when you have deities at home, it's the idea that they become the focus. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that simply the family should come together in the morning and chant Hare Krishna before the deities, and also in the evening. So that's good if that can become a focus instead of the TV. Good to see the Lord as the proprietor of the house. In one sense, the Lord plays, he is the supreme Lord, so he owns the house, but he's in the mood of a guest as well. Interesting thing about the mood of the Lord within your home. So just like a guest comes, then the guest is going to be satisfied with what you offer him. So in the same way, the Lord, in one sense, he owns the house, but also he's a guest. So he'd be happy. He's happy to receive whatever you may offer him in that sense. And also, we mentioned this helps us to, we touched on this a little bit, helps us to see God as a person. It's something which is not known to a lot of theistic practices. Some even speak of God as a person, but they actually don't have the details of his form. Especially, we are very graced. We actually know the form of Krishna. So having a deity helps us to see him and relate to him as a person. And we mentioned this as well. We can have tangible exchanges with the Lord, revealing our heart, praying to him. And we see the Lord every day and can reveal our hearts and mind to him. So we've mentioned those. So now I'm going to jump a few slides. So give me a couple of seconds. So I'm just going to go over some considerations, things to take into account. If you have deities at home or you're thinking of worshipping deities at home, some things perhaps we should think about. Well, here's some reasons or some arguments brought up, or some doubts that may be brought up. Why do we need an altar at home? We've addressed that to some degree, as Krishna is everywhere. And normally I would ask for questions or answers here. But basically, so Krishna is everywhere, so why do we need an altar? Just as we've been explaining, so we can offer our personal worship to the Lord. So we have Prabhupada, in that sense, he was criticized for opening temples. Why are you opening so many temples? There's so many temples in India. Prabhupada said, and he answered he said, there's so many children everywhere. Why do we need more children? Everyone has their own children. Yeah, they like to have their own children. So Krishna's everywhere. So we can focus. Why do I need an altar? If I want to see him, I can go to see him in the temple. That's true. But also, if you can't get to the temple every day, and all your food you can offer to the Lord at home on your altar. The third point, there's the title of the presentation is Home Worship, Simple and Sublime. Don't make the worship too complicated. Keep it as simple as possible, especially if you're working. So it doesn't have to be complicated. Some persons think that worshipping deities is very complicated. No, very simple. An altar wouldn't fit into my small flat. We have some pictures if we get there, showing different altars. Our altar can be size of a matchbox. It doesn't have to be big. Depends on your specific situation. You don't have to worship at home. Then you don't have to be Brahmin initiated. Ideally, you might wait until you're initiated and you get blessings and direction from your spiritual master. That's ideal, but you may have taken up Krishna consciousness and already have deities at home, you know, before you got initiated. That's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But just for your information, you don't need to be second initiated to worship the deities at home. So it might be something to consider, that before I have deities at home, let me get first initiation. It's not an absolute rule, but that may help, because then by that time you're more steady. So keep this in mind if you're preaching to others who are coming to Krishna consciousness. So this is the type of advice you might give them. You probably would advise newcomers to have pictures first. Prabhupada would do that before temples were opened. He would advise them to have Guru and Gauranga altars. Like you have in Manchester, you have a picture of Panchatattva. Yeah. So Prabhupada, in more than one place, he says householders have to perform deity worship. And here's a quote. This is from the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is from the verse Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu. Prabhupada gives the longest purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam, describing the different Nava-anga practices of Krishna consciousness, hearing, chanting, etc., and archana. He says here, quote, an opulent householder can collect luxurious paraphernalia for deity worship. And consequently, for householder devotees, the worship of the deity is compulsory. In our Krishna conscious movement, there are brahmacharis, grihastas, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. But the deity worship in the temple should be performed especially by the householders. The brahmacharis can go with the sannyasis to preach Hare Krishna. And the vanaprasthas should prepare themselves for the next status of renounced life. Sannyas from next life, next renounced life, sannyas. Grihastha devotees, however, are generally engaged in material activities, and therefore, and here it is in red here, so get ready, hold on to your seat. If they do not take to deity worship, their falling down is positively assured. Gulp. So it's so easy to get distracted, especially with all the duties and all the commitments that we have, especially when we have a house and children. We can easily get washed away in fulfilling these duties and lose touch with Krishna consciousness. So in that sense, Prabhupada is advising, he's quite more than advising, he's given an instruction here. Just comes to mind, we may cover it later, but while it comes to mind now, if we live close to a temple, within visiting distance to a temple daily, then we may not need to have deity worship at home. Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles didn't encourage his devotees who are living on the same street as the temple in Watseka Avenue. He encouraged them not to have worship at home, but to come to the temple. But I think, as far as I can guess, for most of you there in Manchester, well, the temple's closed at the moment, I presume, then you're coming in the car once a week or whatever. So anyway, so keep that in mind. I'm sure you've all got experience, married life and children and work. It's so easy to make compromises on one's devotional activities. So having deities at home, it very much helps. If you have a regulation to dress them once a week on Ekadashi or do Aarti, you'll find that will help so much. Otherwise, we can easily become lost, so to speak. So Prabhupada, there's other quotes here I have in the same vein, but we won't read all of them. I think that one's quite, here's one, I'll just read one from 7th canto again, 5th chapter. Especially, oh, this is the same quote here, yeah, sorry, to read the same thing. Yeah, especially for householder devotees, the path of deity worship is strongly recommended. As far as possible, every householder, by the direction of the spiritual master, must install the deity of Vishnu. Forms like Radha Krishna, Lakshmi Narayan, Sitaram, especially, or any other form of the Lord, like Nrsimha, Varaha, Kodantai. So Prabhupada, in this purport here, second canto, third chapter, text 22, Prabhupada gives very high standard for home worship, which we may not be able to practice in other places. He gives other standards, but here specifically, Prabhupada is really enthusiastic here. He says, all the members of the household should be engaged in deity's service to the Lord. Okay, hold on to your seat. This is what Prabhupada recommends. Beginning from 4 a.m. till 10 p.m. by performing Mangalarti, Darshan, Archam, Pudra, Kirtan, Shringa, Bhoga offerings, Sandhya Arti, etc. at night. So he's mentioning engagement from 4 till 10. So please don't think you have to immediately do that. That would probably be very difficult, but Prabhupada is in mood of enthusiasm there, because Prabhupada gives different prescriptions in other places. This is the type of thing you might do if you're retired, or well, if you're locked up at home, you could, and you're not working. But anyway, Prabhupada's very enthusiastic that devotees, I think you get the message here, that household devotees do engage in deity worship, very important. And we mentioned this, so we won't spend so much time on it. Here's the quote directly. I think it's best that everyone centers his attention on the deity in the temple. And in that way, the temple worship will pull on nicely. Of course, if the temple is unapproachable or too far, that is a different thing. But if the temple is easily accessible, then it is the best program. So please keep this in mind. If you have deities at home, it doesn't mean, okay, that's it, no need to visit the temple. What's at the temple? Sadhu Sangha. We need to associate with devotees. It's very good for us to get together, engage in Sankirtan, to chant the holy name of the Lord together. So, and also to support the temple as well. So there in Manchester, I think you have a program each week. So it's good if you arrange things in such a way that you at least visit once a week. So in other words, it's just because we have deities at home, don't detach yourself from the association of devotees. Without the association of devotees, how can we make any advancement? And the second quote is the point I mentioned in regards to Los Angeles and devotees who are having their own program of worship. This here, let's check the time. Actually, we'll play it if it plays. It's not going to play. Perhaps it's just as well, because this is a video, which we're not going to see, because it takes a bit too long, actually. This is Banu Swami, and he's speaking about home worship versus temple worship. Yeah, home worship is very simple. Temple worship is very grand. And he mentions there, I listened to it yesterday, that temple worship, it doesn't mean, he mentions a point, a very interesting point, that the mood of why we have deities at home, it's not just so we can show them off to other devotees. Oh, look what deities I have, look what worship I'm doing. That's not the right mood. The right mood is devotion. And the same in the temple. If we just had the temple and we only got the temples so people can come and give donations, that is not the right mood. So this is what Banu Swami focuses on here. He mentions specifically that the right mood should be service to the Lord. And we mentioned this in the beginning a little bit. So it's very important to re-emphasize this. This is a letter in 1970. Deity worship means to be very, very clean. You should try to bathe twice daily. The deity should never be approached without having bathed first and changed to clean cloths after passing store, etc. Keep teeth brushed after each meal, fingernails clean and trimmed. Be sure that your hands are clean before touching anything on the altar or the deities, and cleanse the deity room, altar and floor daily thoroughly. Shiny various arctic paraphernalia. After arctic, this is described in the booklet for pujaris written by Shilavati Dasi. The idea of summit cleanliness. So that was in 1970. So please keep this in mind. It's maybe an upgrade for you. You should see, if you have deities at home, it's time to upgrade. Time to upgrade the cleanliness. Or perhaps you have deities at home, so just have a look around. What is the Lord looking at? So as much as possible, we see it in that sense. The Lord is the proprietor, he's the guest, yes, as we mentioned, but he's the owner of the house. So cleanliness is very important, that we get trained in aspects of culture, in Brahminical, not in Brahminical aspects of cleanliness. I'm sure most of you are aware of these things. We take shower after passing stool, and there's other things as well. I've got lots of details here. I'll give some of them. After shaving, we should take bath before we approach the deity. Conception, we should take bath. If you go to a crematorium, something to consider. I'm sure most of you might be aware of this, coming from Indian culture, that you should take bath. The whole thing of death is a very contaminating thing. It's very natural. It's as natural as birth. But the whole procedure itself, I've been to, when I go to funerals, you can feel it. You can feel the energy. So whenever I go, then I always take shower and change clothes. So hopefully, I don't know, hopefully we may have had enough of being told how to wash our hands after this coronavirus. But always wash your hands before and after taking prasad. I'm not too sure how many details I should go into. I'm guessing all of you are aware of these things, so perhaps we won't focus on them too much. If you have any questions about these topics, then perhaps you could ask in the question when we stop for questions. We can confirm and we can clarify. What slide am I on? Yeah. Children and deity worship. And Prabhupada gave a specific quote here about what age can children engage in deity worship. And he says here, deity worship can be learned at no less than 10 years of age. Before that, they can assist. They can learn how to bow down, how to dance and chant, how to make garlands, clean arctic utensils, etc. These are also different parts of deity worship. So generally, I mean, your children, if they're quite sober and mature before 10, then you might entrust them for different aspects of deity worship. But before that age, they tend to put things in their mouth. They're not so aware of Brahminical cleanliness. So please keep that in mind. Best not to kind of, also there's these dolls you can get, isn't it? You can buy these dolls of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. Different opinions on that, but better, I've seen children with their Jagannath dolls throwing them across the room, you know, in their plays. So then it's not quite good. Did the children sort of have some level of understanding and some respect, which is taught to them by the parents before they may be entrusted to touch the deities or touch the altar? So please keep that in mind. But here's where Prabhupada said, if you want to, what Prabhupada said about that specifically, no less than 10 years of age. There's so much they can do. Other than that, they can help clean. Prabhupada mentions here, they can dance, clean the arti paraphernalia. And again, it's a wonderful thing for encouraging the children in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada himself gave himself as an example in that regard. He used to watch his father do his worship, and his father brought him a pair of Radha Krishna deities, which then he would imitate. Prabhupada says he would imitate his father. Also, Maharaj Parikshit also is given an example, would also do the same thing from a very young age. This is another point to consider as well, is having deities. They would do, see, it's not the best example, but I saw this bumper sticker on the back of a car. It said, pets are not just for Christmas. You know, people get all fired up and sentimental at Christmas time when they get a pet. Then they can't maintain it. They find it very difficult to maintain. So not the best example. The deities are not pets. There's a Supreme Lord. But think before you may have deities at home. Think things through, think things out. If you're traveling a lot, if your work involves travel, and you're perhaps single, then best not have deities. Best not have deities. In other words, sometimes there's, can we put the deities in a box when we go on holiday? That's often. So we should understand that worshiping a deity at home should be the same commitment as we have in caring for a baby. Again, the Lord is personally present. Would you do that to your baby? Okay, I'm going away. Here's some nuts. You just stay here, I'll tie you up, lock you in a box. No, we wouldn't. So try to avoid it. Think things through before you have deities. So, but what to do if your life changes? Say if you got deities and you didn't have, and you weren't traveling much, and now you're traveling, and now you have deities. Someone's unmuted there. So best thing to do within your community of devotees, you can find someone who can take care of your deities. I think I might have mentioned this before. We've done some home worship teaching in Manchester before, just recalling now. The question was asked. I mean, that's what the community members do here. We have devotees, again, I mentioned they've been worshiping deities at home for 30, 40 years. And the worship continues, even if we go to India. Of course, you can take the Lord to India with you, if that's convenient. You can also do that, of course. But if that's not possible, form a little sangha of devotees, have a share, where you can take your deities to someone else's house. And it doesn't mean that that person has to cook another offering. No, they accept all the same worship or the same offering, so to speak. So think it through. If you got, that's the best thing to do. As the worship should continue. Again, having deities at home should be the same mood of caring for a child. So you should make the necessary arrangements for the deities to be cared for, in the same way you would for your own children. There might be some questions about that. Just reading here, I missed some points here. Yeah, another thing is, don't expect the temple to take care of your deities, The temple's already got lots of things to do. Unfortunately, I've had one experience here where I was at reception in the morning before the temple opened, and there was a box outside, and I was curious, and I opened the box, and there was Gauri Thai. Beautiful set of Gauri Thai. In other words, obviously someone had deities, something had happened in their lives. I don't know what, probably some whole issues there, and all of a sudden they took the deities to the temple. So that's not the role of the temple. As in, the temple's already got enough to try and organize and arrange. So anyway, think things out before you have deities. Another thing to contemplate, to think about as well, is that deities are for life. They're not just for 5 years, 15 years, 20 years. They're for the whole life. So you should think that out as well. Have some thoughts towards who's going to take care of our deities when I pass away from this world. We should be thinking like that. In India, I'm sure we know there's hundreds of deities and temples and homes and houses which are neglected. Some not, but many are. So hopefully we can hope that our children will follow our footsteps and worship the deities, but that's not always the case. That's another something to think about. If it all seems, and unless you're sure of these things, best to have pictures before you're sure you can make a commitment to worship at home. Another thing as well is that if someone comes to you, I have heard it so many times, someone came to me and they gave me this Shalagram Shila. It must be the Lord's arrangement. They gave me this Gauri Thai. It may not be the Lord's arrangement. You're quite within your rights of, if you don't think you can worship appropriately, a deity which seems to have so-called come by the arrangement of providence, better you pay your obeisances and say, sorry, thank you, but I'm unable to offer the worship that's needed. So many times devotees come through with questions, or this devotee gave me this shalagram, he gave me 20 shalagram shilas. You have your rights, please. No, I have no permission from my guru, from my shiksha, from my teachers. Thank you for the offer. It's not an offense. It may not be the arrangement of the Lord. We have to be, in other words, we have to take steps responsibly. I remember one time there was a group of devotees from Pandavasain. They all went to Vrindavan, about 15 of them, and they all came back with Gaunitai deities. And these are all students at university. None of those devotees are worshipping those deities now. They all got infused and came back with deities, and most of them are not, as far as I know, they're not worshipping. Anyway, so I think you got the point there. A couple of additional points are made there. Think things out before we should encourage you to worship the Lord at home. But please think things out. Again, we're going through these points. This is quite a discussion what we have normally, but we'll just go through kind of bullet point, something you to think about. Setting up the altar at home, where in a house, what to consider. Well, consider from the deity's point of view, what does the deities have to look at every day? Yeah, we may not have any choice. It may be very difficult. Depends on the setup of our home. But it's nice if the deities can be, they can be looking at the back garden, if you've got one. Or they're near some light, they're in good light. So think of it from the deity's point of view. It's nice where you're going to put the altar, big or small. How high is it? How high is the altar? This is important if you've got children. The altar should be quite high, which is so it's unreachable to children. So young children below 10 years of age tend to grab anything and everything. So you may consider that. Your domestic situation, what is your situation? Are you living in a shared house? Do you have people eating meat in the house? You may live in a shared house where some people are not vegetarians, So you're not you may live in a house, or you may be in a situation. We have some situations in our community where you got the wife is very infused about Krishna consciousness, but the husband is not. Or the husband is very infused about Krishna consciousness and the wife is not. You're very blessed if, I'm sure, I think most of you, your husband and wife are very much into Krishna consciousness, but that may be an issue. So then you're not going to have the deities as the main focus in the room. It may just cause tension. So in that situation, you may have the deities to the side or within your own space. So it depends on your domestic situation. If there's people eating meat, then better you don't have deities at home. I would recommend best to have pictures. That may be best in that situation. But there's many different situations, so you have to consider your domestic situation. So in other words, we should approach it in the mode of goodness. Yeah, okay, it's nice. We have a nice sentiment to worship deities, and we should, as Prabhupada recommended. But good to sit down and think things out. What are the issues here? Where am I going to put the altar? Yeah. And I've said, actually, I'll show some pictures of altars in the next couple of slides. Yeah, who should I worship? Generally, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we have specific worship that's been specifically given to us by Prabhupada. We have deities in our ISKCON movement. We have Gaunitai, obviously. We have Radha Krishna. We have Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. We have Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. We have Krishna Balaram. I'm sure you may think of others. We have Govardhan worship. Presently we have. That wasn't Prabhupada's plan. Prabhupada, it's a side issue. Prabhupada in regards to Govardhan Shila. We have Govardhan Shila here. Prabhupada advised against it in the early days, but Govardhan made his own way into ISKCON, and he's there. So best keep it like that. You can have pictures of Lord Shiva. Long as you're aware of the tattva, that Lord Shiva is very happy to be approached as a devotee of the Lord. Yata Vaishnava, Yata Shambhu. He's a great devotee of the Lord. So generally, as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that's our altar setup. So it depends which background you're coming from, or which situation you're coming from. India, you may have people have a pantheon of deities on their altar. We had this in our community where one family became very infused about, the wife became very infused about Krishna consciousness. Oh, something moved there. Sorry, 1 second. 1 second. What's there? I'm just going to get rid of this email. Okay, I'm going to have to bear with me 1 minute. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna.
It looks okay for us, Prabhu.
Yeah, you can see, yeah?
Yeah, it looks fine now.
Yeah.
The only thing is, I think, yeah, that's fine. Back to normal. Oh, but again, we can see now. Yeah, this
How's
is okay.
that?
Yeah,
it's
this
okay,
is,
yeah?
this is good
okay.
now. Thank you.
My computer, what it does lately, it just, won't bore you with what happened with my computer. Okay, so yeah, so generally that should be our focus of our worship. Yeah, I was mentioning, so if there's many, so then that's our focus. We are learning exclusive Akinchana or exclusive worship of or dependence upon Radha Krishna. So it's not as if you can't have other demigods on the altar, but at least we should understand their relationship to Krishna. So generally, who you worship, you can look as an example in our temples. Pictures of these, I think we've covered that. Pictures don't require any commitment as such. In other words, you can go on holiday and you can leave them there. You can leave the pictures there. No need to take the pictures with you. So I think we discussed that a bit. Deities, a bit more of a commitment is expected, or you can have both. And this is a point that Srinivasa Prabhu mentions: keep it simple. Don't make it too complicated. Keep this simple. You don't want it to be a burden. It's not like you should get home from work and think, oh my God, I'm so tired now. I've got to do this and I've got to do that. I've got to, do this for the deities. It shouldn't be like that. Maintain it as simple as possible, and only increase the standards when you're sure you have enough time. I'm just going to move this. Let's do some adjustments again. So keep it simple. I normally ask the question here, what's the main thing in worshiping the Lord? Devotion. That's the main thing that Lord is interested, is very hungry for, is devotion. So no need to make it overly complicated. You can have beautiful altar if you like. Fine. And in that regard, here's some pictures. I'll just show you some pictures of different altars. Again, they come in all shapes and sizes. This one's a small altar. It's neat and tidy. It's quite functional. It's in the bedroom. Yeah, so this is obviously, perhaps there's other people in the house who don't share the same enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness. So then the altar here is there. Very nice, small, compact. That's the same again. They have Gauni Thai there. Radha Madhav, the looks of it, or a small Radha Madhav, Panchatattva. Yeah, on our altars, we normally give more time for this, but on altars you should definitely have Srila Prabhupada there. standard on all our altars, Srila Prabhupada, by his grace and mercy, and a picture of your own spiritual master. If you're initiated, it should be there, present on the altar. And very small. There's a functional altar. You may have an altar in your front room, but then you have a little altar in your kitchen for offering bhoga. That can be done. If it's convenient, if you could, it's not. If you've got deities, you should offer your bhoga there. It depends on your situation. If you're living in a shared house or whatever. But anyway, this is an altar. It's a functional altar for offering bhoga. Very simple. Again, all this deity worship doesn't have to be very complicated. Here's a more closer look at that same. But this is the bare essentials. I mentioned cleanliness again. It's a very good, if you have deities at home, we can worship, good to upgrade our cleanliness. Good excuse to be extra clean in everything within the house, because the Lord is present. This one friend of mine, Pitambar Govinda Prabhu. He has, probably can't see it, Shalagram Shila there. And his altar there is kind of, see there's nice light coming in one side. He's right near his patio windows toward the back garden. So nice consideration. You can also, you can have a standard of fresh flowers on. That's very nice. If you're blessed to have a back garden, and you're blessed to have time to do something with the back garden, nice to grow flowers and bring before the Lord, or nice as you're coming home from work, pop into the florist, buy some flowers. Nice and good to have standard. You don't want to let your flowers just rot on the altar. It's considered in the book called the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's lots of unmentionable things that happens to persons who leave flowers rotting on the altar. I won't mention them, they're too scary. But nice to have fresh flowers every day. That's simple to do, isn't it? Or every other day. Well, have fresh flowers. You don't have to have fresh flowers every day, because they may stay fresh for 2 or 3 days. But keep them fresh. That's nice to do. And here one level, we have Parampara. Yeah. Then we have Panchatattva. This is probably the deities of the local temple. And then the main deities is Gaunitai. So there's Gaunitai there. This is the couple friends of the Shankavacha. Beautiful, isn't it? Nice worship, nice, clean, nice, beautiful looking altar. Looks like purposely been made. Good thing to spend our hard-earned money on is things for Krishna. Let me buy a beautiful altar for Krishna. Let me get a wonderful altar made for Krishna in India. Yeah, this is what we do with wealth, with assets that come. We maintain our family comfortably, and anything we have, we spend it on Krishna. And Krishna's part of our family as well, so we want to maintain him very nicely. But it's a nice altar, isn't it? Couple look very happy and content for this. Imagine they engage in regular worship there of Radha Krishna. More of a, you can, nice to have one standard devotees have is they have curtains. So when you're taking food yourself, I know some devotees, then you can pull the curtains in front of the altar. That's a nice standard. Just looking at the time here, it's 2 o'clock. So we'll just finish these photos. There's good light here coming in. And have a closer look. One thing, deity worship is unlimited. Once you get into it, it should become your favorite. Every time you go to India, you should bring something back for the deities. Do something nice, like a new pair of shoes. Look, I bought these new pair of beautiful shoes for our Gaunitai. You know, always be mindful of what can you do for the Lord. Yeah, here's another large. This is a separate room. You may be blessed with it. If you're blessed, in one sense, if you're living your circumstances, you can dedicate a room, one whole room to the worship. That can be the temple room. It's a nice separate deity room. Bit of a blurred picture there, but here this altar has curtains. Very nice. You can close them. Small altar there. Again, nice light. Looks nice and clean. This is a well, this is a big altar. Big. This is serious stuff here. This is a festival, by the way. So this is someone's home, somewhere in India, I think, and beautiful Radha Krishna deities, Panchatattva from Gaunitai. So the sky's the limit, but please keep in mind, as I said, keep it simple according to your situation. There's another beautiful altar. There's a room dedicated to the worship. Beautiful backdrop. Something you can do. You go to India, you can then get a beautiful backdrop for our deities and get a beautiful backdrop made. So Hare Krishna. Now what I do, what I didn't cover is these things here. Archman, waking the deities, offering food, offering arti, bathing and dressing, putting these to rest. Obviously that would take some time to go through all of these, but I have some resources on PDF where all these things are explained very nicely. It gives you all the mantras for waking the deities and putting the deities to sleep. So I shall share these with Radha Vinod after, and then he can share with you. So you can look there for your interest, how to do Achman. And just on Achman, I give you a simple Achman to practice, just 3 mantras. But also if you go online, deityworship.com, Achman, then you'll see a video of full Achman if you want of how to do Achman. So don't worry, we didn't cover these, but I give you some handouts some resources where you can see that and read it in your own time. Okay, so it's 2 o'clock, so perhaps we'll open up now for questions or comments, and we'll try and answer. If I don't have the answers, I shall write it down and I'll ask the head of Deity Worship Ministry, Nishinga Kavacha, who I have a hotline to. So then I come back to you, I send the answer to Radha Vinod and he can share it. But please, if there's any curiosities, any questions, we can try and address.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Very enlightening class. And of course, we have a good number of questions actually. There are a couple of questions in the chat box also. And a few devotees sent me questions separately. So I will share with you.
Best if you just read the questions.
Yeah. So first of all, here one question is like, can we feed Gaunitai non-Ekadasi food on Ekadasi? That's one question here.
Yeah, well, I tell you what the standard we have in temples, for your information, then Gaunitai follow Ekadashi. That's how Gaunitai did follow Ekadashi. Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda followed Ekadashi. But Radha Krishna don't, Jagannath don't. Like in our altar, then on Ekadashi, we offer grains to Radha Krishna and Lord Jagannath, but not to Gaunitai. So best not.
Okay.
Yeah, you should not do that. They are following, Lord Chaitanya is in the role of a devotee. So he's following the sadachar of a practicing devotee.
Yeah.
So,
and there is another question here. I had deities before coming to ISKCON, and of course, my sons will not take care of my deities when I die. What should I do?
Yeah, we mentioned this a little bit. Yeah, problem. Pray to the Lord. Pray to the Lord. And you often see that in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnava history, where devotees praying to the Lord that someone takes care of his deities. At the same time, keep your antennas out, so to speak. Keep your satellite out for who may be kind enough to take on the care of your deities. At the same time, just continue. Don't be in too much anxiety, but pray to the Lord, and hopefully things will work out. But here's an example. That's something to think about for you before you may have deities. But don't worry too much. Pray to the Lord, and at the same time, be on the lookout and the Lord will guide you, and the Lord will give you intelligence to how the worship may continue.
Yeah.
So I hope that
And,
helps.
yeah. And Prabhuji, another question. What can we do with the old Hare Krishna calendars?
What can we do with old Hare Krishna calendars?
Calendars. Yeah.
I tell you what we do here. You should have a Maha bin at home. We have a bin, called a Maha throw out. So pictures, beautiful pictures, isn't it? And we put it in the Maha throw out, and it's in a separate bag, and it goes exactly where all the other rubbish goes. But there's some respect is there. If you had the river Ganges, you could go to the Ganges and put all your flowers and garlands, and you put your flowers and pictures in the Ganges, but we don't have river Ganges.
Yeah.
So we have to be practical. If you, that's generally what we advise. You should have a Maha bin and is separate, at least. So you're maintaining some respect for the Nirmalakatam, the Prashad with the Lord's holy name. So you can do that. That's fine.
Yeah. And Prabhuji, another question. I have silver Deity. How can I keep it shiny?
You have what?
Silver deities.
Silver deities. I tell you a new discovery I've made just over the last month. Now I don't know how to spell it. It's quite a word. Diatomaceous earth. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. Perhaps I'll send Radha Vinod that name.
Yeah.
It's a natural occurring substance, and we're presently using it for our Gornitai deities now, and they look so shiny because we ran out of tilak, and because of the lockdown, we didn't have any tilak.
Yeah.
So we ordered this diatomaceous earth. It's completely natural. It has many people take it as a food supplement. It helps in so many ways. So I'll send Radha Vinod that, because that's best to use this, because this is natural. You can get silver polish easily in different places, but normally it's got some impurity in it, and some it really smells really foul, and it smells really foul because it's got lots of foul things in. So you might try this diatomaceous earth. Don't worry, I'll send the name of it to Radha Vinod, and he can forward it to you, and you can do some investigation with it.
Yeah. And
what you do, what you do is you just add a bit of water to it and make it into a paste. Get some cotton wool, and then just polish, go over, and then rinse with warm water, and then buff and shine. And when you shine it with a dry cloth, this nice cloth, it really comes up nice.
Yeah.
So,
and should deity clothing be washed every day?
They don't have to be. Again, the standards you have at home is really up to you. Depends on the time you have. If you have the time and you have to clean them every day, that's fine. That's very nice, but it's not absolutely necessary. For your information, our outfits, generally outfits like for Radha Londoneshwar, we don't clean them. Shock horror. Because if we clean them, then all the jari will come off. So you don't have to. You don't have to. You can if you want. If you clean deities' clothes, generally they tend to not last very long. So best if you have small deities, if they're getting old and a bit tatty and looking a bit grey, you can clean them, or if not, just retire the outfit and buy a new set. Gornitai, just buy a new set of clothes. So it's not an absolute, so you don't have to, it's not an offense if you don't clean the deity's clothes every day.
Yeah.
Do it, just do it when you can.
Yeah. So Neelam Mataji, could you please ask a question?
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
This is a very complicated. How do
Okay, that's right.
Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thanks so much for the wonderful session. Very enlightening. Very quick question.
Yeah.
You already answered it in parts, but I just wanted more clarity. With regards to disposing items of spiritual significance like the calendar. One suggestion, I don't remember the reference, but one suggestion was also...
Or go on.
one suggestion was also to dispose books like the Bhagavad Gita if they are not in a usable condition anymore. Is it all right to put them in a fire sacrifice?
Yeah, I've heard that as well. As though it might be, I've never seen it done. And so imagine you would call some alarm to the Vaishnavas if you have a Bhagavad Gita and there's a yagna going on and you put the Bhagavad Gita in a fire. It might cause a bit of alarm to the Vaishnavas.
Yeah.
So I've interested at first. I've not seen that done personally. Yeah, another option is you can bury Nirmala, Mahabhushad, things like that, garlands and things like that, pictures. That is another option. But I could say I don't know. I don't think so. I could ask that as a question if you want.
Please.
Can we put? I'll ask to Nrsimhavacha. I'll write that down. I
Thank
would tend to think not. You can imagine putting Bhagavad Gita in the fire. It might create some concern.
Thank you.
No problem. Hare Krishna.
So thank you, Madhakumar Prabhu. So Prabhu, I have another question. I have no
Yes.
for a bed. How
No? Sorry,
deities to sleep?
say that again. I missed it.
Yeah, I have no room for a bed for deities.
No problem. Don't worry. So then you don't have a bed. It's not a problem. You can do it in Manasa. You can just say the mantra, and I'll give you those mantras in the handouts which I give you. There's mantras. You can just say to the Lord, "My dear Lord, please now take your rest." And that's it. Yeah, you just do it for a mantra, and then the Lord. That's nice. It's personal. And remember, if you put the Lord to rest, if you say mantras for resting, don't forget to wake him up the next morning.
Yeah.
Say mantras to wake him as well. My dear Lord, please wake. And you can, I send you the resources, the Sanskrit's there, the mantras we use in the temple, but you don't have to do it in Sanskrit, you can do it in English. My dear Lord, please now wake, please cast your glance upon me, merciful glance, please now awake. So you don't have to have beds if you don't have room, fine, no need to have beds. That's quite a high standard. And actually, I will share with you as well, there's a general guide for what level of worship for whatever deities that you have. And I share that document with you. Now, it's just a general guide. It's not an absolute rule. It's just what you may consider doing if you have Gaunitai deities, what you may consider doing if you have Jagannath deities, what you may consider doing if you have Radha Krishna deities at home. Then it gives you a recommendation of what worship that you might think about doing. But it's not like sastric. It's just something that the deity worship ministry has, from experience in guiding devotees at home, they've concluded that. So I share that with you as well. That will be of interest. You know?
And Prabhuji, another question: should we have to take shower at night after we have taken prasadam? I normally wash my hands and feet and change my clothes, then put deities to rest.
If I follow, it's not, no, after taking prasadam, you shouldn't take shower. If I follow your, otherwise could get sick, you know. Generally, it's not considered so good to take shower straight after taking prasadam. But the other part of the question is, just go through that again, the procedures which this devotee is following. I got, Radha Vinod, can you just repeat that again?
Yeah. So I normally wash my hands and feet, change my clothes, then put deities to rest. Okay,
yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's good. Okay, you're not taking full shower. That's something. That's so again, what standards you have at home is really up to you and how much time you have. So you may not have time to take full shower. You may get home late from work and you may just, so that's okay. Other devotees will have time and that's what they do. So if you can't do that, it's very nice to be in the habit of putting on devotional cloth. That's very nice. So that's okay. You can do that. Again, the worship you have at home shouldn't be a burden for you. It shouldn't be something which, oh God, you know, Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? I can't. You just have to maintain it very simply. So that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. So another question, something similar, maybe, is it necessary to give our spiritual master extra time to eat prasad after lordships have eaten?
Extra time? Oh,
Yeah.
I see. I understand. No, I tell you what we do in the temple. We just take the prasad and we put it in front of the picture of the spiritual master, and we say, "My dear Gurudev, please accept this prasadam." Bas, finished.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so you just show the guru, you can show the picture, you can bring the plate in front of the spiritual master. Pranam Mudras, my dear Gurudev, please accept this prasadam.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to leave it there, that's fine as well. That's nice if you want. That's quick say more personal. You're meditating on the guru, but there's no need, and it's not done in temples. There's a procedure after offering the prasad to Gauditai. We just show him the Mahaprasad, and we offer to the guru. Then we offer to all the Vaishnavas. We say a mantra for offering to all the Vaishnavas. So I hope that's clear. There's no need to leave it by the guru for 5 or 10 minutes. You can just show it to him, and that's sufficient.
Yeah. So, Prabhuji, another question. How do we know if our deities are satisfied with our service?
How do we know? Yeah, good question. I could give an answer in one. If you're feeling satisfied, then you can know that the Lord is satisfied. Another point to consider as well, it comes in line with how do you know that the deities accept our offerings? How do you know? I mean, what do we need? Devotion. Then he accepts. But if I have no devotion, how's the Lord going to accept my offerings? But just by following the vidhi, just by following the directions of the spiritual master, by engaging in worship, that will ensure the Lord accepts your offering. Do you understand? So just the fact that you're engaging in worship under the direction, say, of the spiritual master, then the Lord is pleased. The Lord is very, especially Gaunitai, they're very easily pleased.
Yeah.
That's another discussion we don't have much time for, but generally recommended the first step, indeed, is at home, will be Gaunitai. So if you're being respectful and you're following the directions of Prabhupada. Prabhupada said you should have deities, you should worship at home, and you're following his direction. So you're pleasing Krishna.
Yeah.
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 No, yeah.
So, and another question, I offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner to my deities.
Yes.
Is it still necessary for us to give them water during the day as well?
Again, it's up to you. Generally, most altars, you will have a cup of water throughout the day.
Yeah.
That's a nice standard. That's quite a simple thing. So that's a general standard that devotees follow. It's a standard we have and you should generally have a nice cup and you have the water there throughout the day. That's very nice. And then you may change it at the end of the day. If that answers your question.
Yeah. And some of the altars which you showed, it answered this question, but still I am reading in case if you want to say, does the altar has to be covered from top if a separate room has been dedicated for lordships? Our altar is open.
Say again. I missed it. It's covered from
Does
top.
the altar has to be covered from the top like a roof? Above?
Oh, I see.
Our altar is open.
Okay. That's okay. As you saw different examples of altars. If you're going to invest in an altar, it's something you made. Generally, they come like that. They come with a roof, so to speak. So you might keep that in mind when you're investing in an altar. But if you don't, it depends on your situation. It doesn't have to be. Again, it's not an offense not to have a roof on the altar. Generally, you'll see it. I mean, in our temple we have. So if you can, it's nice. That's generally what you see. But if you can't, if your situation you can't or you don't, don't worry, it's not an aparad. Yeah, the Lord's still accepting your worship. You know?
Yeah. So any other questions from devotees?
Yes, true.
Yes, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, just a technical question. If the deities are established deities, pran-pratishtha deities, are we okay to take them on our travels, like visits to the temple or any other place where we are going for more than a few days with the intent to look after them?
Yeah, I'm not too sure what you mean about prana-pratishtha, but just on a side point before we address the question as such, installing deities or at home can be a very simple procedure. You've no need to do full prana-pratishtha, what you might see done in big temples. You can just chant Hare Krishna, invite devotees round, have prasadam. You may do an abhishek. You may invite a senior devotee to come, and yeah, it's simple like that. It's good to have it on a specific day, an appearance day of an acharya. So then in 10 years' time, every time that appearance day comes, you remember this is when we began the worship. So prana-pratishtha, then there's no need for a formal prana-pratishtha. There's what they do in Chowpatty, they do a welcoming ceremony, which is just, again, abhishek of Gaunitai. So I'm not too sure what you mean about prana-pratishtha.
Sorry.
Pratishtha you've done at home. But
Sorry. Yeah.
yeah, but what you can, yeah, deities you can, if you to continue to worship, then depends on your situation. It is not done in temples. You know, we don't take deities out of the temple and take them to India with us. But home worship's different. Then that may be something in order to continue to worship that you can do, as far as I would understand.
So you're saying okay to travel with them?
Yes. Now it depends what size the deities are.
Okay, so it's practical. We are okay to do.
Yeah, if it's practical, if it's big, generally I've seen from my experience, the more elaborate the prana, or the more big the deities are, and the more commitment is being made, then the bigger the prana petition. So therefore, you wouldn't travel with those deities. They would be established there.
That's
They're large deities. But if there's small deities, home worship deities, then you may travel with them. And while you're traveling, it's good to maintain the worship through manasa puja. You know?
that's fine. Thank you, Brody. Just another, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for confirming and clarifying, Brody. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So another basic question. What's the right take or your opinion on offering things like ready-made things to the Lord, like cornflakes with milk, for example, if you're in a rush in the morning?
Yeah, again, it's a similar point I shall be making. It's up to you. It's not the best. Different devotees will have different standards in their homes, and there's not one standard for everyone in every home. So according to your specific standards, you may have the standards where we don't. You're speaking, it sounds like you're speaking, it's often difficult to have temple standards in a home. Like we don't offer cornflakes to Radha Londonishwar.
Yeah, I think
But at home, it may be different. The idea is you offer everything before you eat it to the Lord. Obviously, has to be, obviously, I'm presuming it's vegetarian, so that we'll agree with. But there's lots of things like jam and other things. Whatever you have at home, it's good to offer it.
That's the intent.
That's the intent. Now, if you may want to have standards at home, and that's fine. So everyone in the family knows that we do not offer this to Gaunitai on the altar. You can offer your cornflakes to the pitcher in the kitchen, but there's no cornflakes going in there. Yeah, so you can make adjustments like that. If you want your Gaunitai, if you establish that principle for Gaunitai, okay, so Gaunitai, we're not gonna, they're not gonna, no more bourbon biscuits to Gaunitai. You can offer them in the kitchen. Depends on you again, what standards you want to establish. But it's nice to have good standards and high standards, but not too high so it becomes troublesome for the whole family, you know.
Thank you.
You don't want to be the point of contention in the family. Anyone else like to share on that? Any experiences of what they do at home? Please feel free. Yeah. Go on, Nataraj, I saw you have your hand up there.
No, there are quite a few questions typed in the chat box, so I think we
Okay.
have to go through them. Yeah, so the other question from Kelly Mataji says, I offer flowers, food, and water to pictures every day. Is this okay?
It's fine. Why should it not be okay? It's wonderful.
Yes, and there is a comment from Barbara Mataji saying, just want to thank you yet again for helping me with my mom's ashes.
Oh, I remember Barbara.
Mayapur in 2013. I will never forget how you helped me. So that's a comment from Barbara Mataji.
Nice to hear from you, Barbara. I hope you're keeping well. Hare Krishna.
What to do with unused old jewelry? I think it's a Deity jewelry. I think they're talking about. If it is a lady's jewelry, they don't want to throw probably.
Yeah, that you can bury in the garden under earth if you want.
So that's bury fine. In the garden.
Yeah. Or you can. Sometimes you can make up. You can break the piece of jewelry up, and someone can make smaller pieces of jewelry from it. Of course, we get lots of broken jewelry here. If you know someone who can fix jewelry, that's also good as well.
Yes.
Another
question.
You can put it in Maha bin or the Maha flower that you have. Yes, sorry.
Another question from Dr. Anthony. Is it okay to put old beads that have snapped into the forest with the trees and plants?
Yes, you can do that. Yeah.
What amount of time should we leave food for Krishna? What is the minimum amount?
1 second. No, you could. It's good. I mean, I have this thing myself. It's good to have some time set aside, because the tendency is to put it on the altar and take it off. That's it. Rub a dub dub. Thanks for the grub, so to speak. No, it's good to have some time. The time in temples is 20 minutes, but you're not going to have that at home probably. You know, generally it's 20. You may have 5 minutes at home. Depends on your situation. Again, it depends on your situation. If you have a baby, a young child, and she's crying for food, then you put it on the altar, you say the prayers, and that's it. Even. In order, then you can remove, the Lord's accepted it, or just by looking, so to speak. So there's that situation maybe there that can be done. But otherwise, good to have some 3 minutes or 5 minutes. There's no, again, it's home worship again. It's really up to you. But it's good to have some time set aside, because the tendency is to...
Another question, Tulasi plant twigs and stems from the plant, how to dispose them or how to make use of them if they are dried and things like that?
Yeah, again, you're going to have to Maha throw out. It's a similar answer. Maha throw out. If you're blessed to have a back garden, put it there. If you're, yeah, on Maha, especially Tulsi, actually they don't happen so often now, but fire yagnas, you can put Tulsi in fire yagna actually. Tulsi leaves, you can collect them up, and when there's a yagna at someone's house, you can take that. You can do that with Tulsi, dry Tulsi. Or you can give dry Tulsi also to friends, and they can put in the people who don't have Tulsi. Tulsi. You can give it to friends. So every time they do a Bhoga offering, they can put some Tulsi on the offering. That's nice to do. If you have dry Tulsi, put in a little packet and give it to someone who doesn't have Tulsi. That's nice.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much, Prabhu. Radhamohan Prabhu, I think you unmuted your mic. You want to say something?
No, Prabhuji, no, I don't have anything to say.
Okay. And that's anything else from anyone?
Yes, Prabhuji, I've got a question.
Yes.
Okay, okay, yes.
You know, in the temple, you know, after you mix Mahaprasad with into food, and if that food is left over, do you do the same? Just put it in the special bag and put it in the bin?
No, we try and eat it. No, I'm not actually, unfortunately, present, no, we have a bin that we put it in, unfortunately. For example, practically speaking, here at the temple, although we've reduced the Bhoga offerings to the lordships, because no one's coming, we've got no guests, all the devotees can't eat all the Mahaprashadam. So it's a good problem to have. But practically speaking, we are doing that. We have to throw some of it away. So unfortunately, what can be done? It's not the best. That's why it's good to learn to cook the amount, so you don't have to throw it away. It's sacred. But what can be done? It's a situation which you can't avoid. We pray to the Lord, you know. So just tell him.
Prabhuji, is it best not to mix the Mahaprasad with the other food then? Because you just don't know how many people are actually going to come.
Oh no, you should mix it, because then that's what you shouldn't.
You should mix it.
Yeah, you should mix it still. Yeah. So because it's considered prasad, the whole thing is okay. You got the prasad that you've offered. It doesn't mean that the prasad you haven't offered is any different. It's prasad, so it makes no difference.
So one more question in the chat box. I give leftover to birds and horses that live near me. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's a nice, good point. That's nice. It's very merciful. The pigeons you can give, or the
Squirrels.
London, we just have pigeons, so we don't have many other wild bird life. So you can do that. It's very nice. That's a very nice mood, actually.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Can you put old flowers into a compost heap?
You can do that. Yes, you can do that. So yeah. Very practical. Home worship should be very practical and easy, as you're seeing. Hopefully this is coming across. It's not so rigid. It's not rigid like in a temple. You know? There's flexibility there. You know?
Okay.
So the time is 2:35. I think we're done with questions. Is that right? Or days?
Excellent. And no more questions. And Prabhu, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate. It was so wonderful to see so many questions we had. Maybe we should have another session with where you can present the remaining items that you couldn't cover today. And the lockdown is the best opportunity, because normally if we want you to come to Manchester, you need so much time to come here, but lockdown could be the best opportunity that you can, sitting in your room, you could present the next session.
Yeah, you mean like the Achman, waking deities, offering food, etc. Yeah, we can do that. At your convenience, we can arrange something. I'm happy to do that.
Excellent. So thank you so much, and His Grace Murli Manohar Prabhu Ki.
Thank you, everyone. Wish you all there well in Manchester. Hare Krishna.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol, couple of announcements. Hare Krishna, couple of announcements from me. Just to let you know that we are, ISKCON Manchester is following the advice of the UK government and keeping an eye on the advice regarding the COVID-19. So taking the health and safety of the devotees, consider everything. We are currently not opening ISKCON Manchester yet. What we'll do is we will keep you posted on that. Thank you for your continuing patience. Much appreciated. But just in the meantime, please make use of these online classes. Next, this Friday, coming Friday, Sutapa Prabhu has kindly agreed to give class, and the title would be Walk the Talk, being a good example of Krishna conscious. And Saturday, we have Bhagavatam seminar in the morning from 8 o'clock. And on Sunday, Radha Mohan Prabhu will be speaking on glories of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Gadadhar Pandit. Those are the announcements. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Once again, Murli Manohar Prabhu Ki Jai.
Manchester Yatra Ki Jai.
Jai. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.